Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast. I am your host, Walt, and I am joined by my world-renowned co-host out of Central Florida. Dude, the month of June is almost gone. We have just finished the Yakking for Bass Challenge. There's going to be an episode coming on that shortly, but right now, how do you feel with the summer?
Man, I feel good. That 30 days was a grind, especially getting out there fishing a bunch. I got to meet up with you right at the very end. We did a little night fishing venture, so that'll always set you back a day or two.
Yeah.
When you spend the night out on the water, for sure.
Yeah.
But, hey, man, it's good. It's still good to be king of the creators, man. I wasn't dethroned this year, so I'm happy as can be with that. And now I'm looking forward to kind of getting things dialed in for hunting season. I haven't checked my quotas yet. I was just actually fixing to do that when you called me in. See if I drew any, but I don't think I'm going to draw the ones that I put in for because I don't have any points for any of them. But I'm not too worried about the quotas this year because I'm going out to Iowa. So I'm going to be chasing the giants out there. So if I get drawn, I do. I think some of my buddies are due to get drawn for some of the areas around here, and I'll be able to go as a guest with them. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing what they draw and what that'll entail scouting-wise. How about you?
Yeah. Dude, I'm good. I'm ready to recover a little bit, maybe take a week or so to recover from all the grinding. I mean, there's a lot of early mornings, a lot of a lot of late nights, and dude, I got drawn. As of right now, when we're recording this, I got drawn for archery and gun, and I got both of the hunts that I wanted here in Florida, which is awesome. Nice. And now we're just waiting on muzzleloader and hog. So shouldn't be too much longer. Those results should drop, and I got to be honest with you, I'm still going to be doing a lot of fishing because it's a long off season. But dude, when I got that email that said permit awarded, I just got a fever about me, and I'm looking around at all my trail cameras I've got prepped, and it's like, it's time to go! It's time to go right now!
Yeah, man, yeah. I've been listening to some other podcast, hunting podcast as well, that kind of been getting me fired up to get out there and do some scouting and set some things up, especially with the trail cams, trying some new stuff this year. Going to see how that works out. So I'm getting there. It's still kind of a dead time for me, though. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It's so, like I said, it's fixing to be so hot outside, but I've been getting some trail cam pics. I've got one cell cam that's been out, basically running since the season's been over. So I got some pictures of bucks and velvet the other day. It's not really it's just over a watering hole, big watering hole. I was actually getting some hogs there as well, so I may have to go take out some of them, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I know some people are dying for it. And the countdown's already been posted.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got 90 days left, or it starts this. I mean, heck, in South Florida, we could be hunting in like a month and a half.
Yeah, that's it.
If we were really go-getters. So we're technically not too far away for our state.
Yeah, I'm going to be hunting Georgia this year, so my season starts September 11th or 12th or something like that this year.
Okay.
Got a couple places I could hunt in September down here in Florida, but the habitat just doesn't seem like it's on par with what I've got just across the border. So I'll probably start my season over there, hunting some of the swamps down there in southwest Georgia. Hopefully going to link up with Josh Shineberry. He's a Patreon subscriber who hunts that area, so I'm going to try and link up with him. I'm going to try and link up with Bo Lice, who you had on the show.
Yep.
He hunts a lot of those areas. So I'm getting excited. Like I said, I got a lot of fishing to do. I'm going to run trail cameras. It's not quite that time to really get excited about it, but I tell you, about mid-August, I'll probably really start to kick it into another gear, especially considering I'm not going to Colorado this year.
Right. You're not? I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where COVID has changed a lot for a lot of people. One of those things is I have to be a little more conscious about the fact that my in-laws live in town now, and we come into contact. We do a lot of things on their behalf because of COVID, and I've got to be kind of safe with what I do. And on top of that, FSU, and on top of that, my work really doesn't want me to do much traveling. And there's the danger that if I travel out of the state going into the fall, I may have to take additional time off to quarantine myself, and I can't swing that, and I sincerely doubt that my employer is going to be too happy with 3 weeks off. I can't imagine that they're going to be thrilled with that. So it's one of those things where I'm going to punt till next year, continue losing some weight. Yes, it stinks, but you know what? I've kept my health. I've kept my job during a pandemic. I've got to do a lot of fishing, and I've got the entire fall ahead of me. So
Yeah, and it won't hurt you to focus on deer while you're down here, anyways. So
yeah, no, exactly. That's last year I got that first deer on photo on video, and I'd like to push the limits on that. I'd like to get several deer on camera this year that I kill, and one of the best ways I can do that is by being in the woods more. So this year we're gonna double down on whitetails, but along those lines, whitetails. You mentioned cell cameras, trail cameras. We've been talking about. We are going to have a really fun episode for everybody this week. We're talking to Brian Stevens of SpyPoint. He runs their new podcast, which is a great listen. I encourage you guys to go listen to that. It's a real laid back podcast, much like ours. The topics vary. He does a wonderful job with it. But today we're going to break down and we're going to dive into trail cameras and how to best utilize them, because that's something that I feel like I've really slept on in years past is utilizing trail cameras.
Right, yeah, I've been using trail cams for years, and slowly been adding to the cache over time, but I still think I need to add more cameras. And last year I was probably a little lax on my cameras, not horribly, but I think I could have used them better. So I'm hoping, like I said, this podcast will kind of point me in that direction and maybe give me some different ways or ideas that I can kind of set cameras up to get more pictures of big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's my goal this year is, we've isolated several spots that hold quality deer for this area, guys. It's not going to be Boone and Crockett type deer, but I want to isolate them. I want to figure out where they're at, and I want to be more efficient with my time when I'm pursuing them. So I've got a little small arsenal of 6 or 7 cameras now that are functional and ready to be deployed. I've got my first cell camera, and that has really impressed me. And that was what really sparked this idea. Was you and I were talking about trail cameras. I was buying trail cameras up left and right, and the thought occurred to us, why don't we have someone on to talk trail cameras? So this is going to be that episode. We're going to cover cellular versus non-cellular, the benefits of them. It's going to be a good time, but we've got a whole lot of people to thank for making this show possible. In fact, when I say that, we have added a lot of people to Patreon lately, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't give them the shout-out that they deserve. So are you ready for this? Because it's going to be a mouthful.
Let's do it, man.
Okay. All right. Derek Outdoors, thank you for being a patron of the show. Jason Griffin, Ken Ruppel, Brian Stanton, Herbert Long, let's see here, Tony Smith, Tyler Jackson, Jason Phillips, Ryan Boguski, Jacob Thompson, another Jason with no last name, Everett Park, and Donovan Reich, probably. Guys, thank you. That is incredible that we're announcing that many patrons of the show. Thank you so much for deciding to choose to support us. That money's going into our operating costs. It's going to go into travel costs just as soon as we can start traveling again and meeting up with people. But that money is going to help really push this podcast into the next level. And I can't wait to get you guys decals and stickers and enter you for the Tethered Phantom saddle and kit that we're giving away. We're doing that in just a couple weeks, so I hope you guys are excited. You should tell your friends about it.
Yeah, no doubt. That Phantom deal is an awesome deal. I'm hoping I'm sure it's going to go to somebody that, hopefully it goes to somebody that's had never been into saddle hunting, and
sure,
just lights the world on fire with them, and they can go spread the word out that saddle hunting is quote unquote legit to everybody. But whoever it is, like I said, I appreciate all the new patrons that we got and the patrons that we've had. So we have a good time with them on our Marco Polo group, and I hope these new guys they're all guys. I hope they join the Marco Polo as well, because it's always a good time over there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're not done with the giveaways for this year. We've got multiple quarters left of the year. We're going to continue to do giveaways, and I think everybody's going to be really excited for next quarter as well. So We're dialing things up here, dude. And on top of all of that, when we're recording this, we're about 5 to 7 days away from me having quality, high speed internet at my house. And dude, I just got to say, you and I have been brainstorming about a lot of things. I am looking at the line right now that's been ran in front of my house, and I think people are going to be really excited with what we get to do moving forward once I'm current on internet.
Yeah, that will be a game changer for the podcast. Whenever you get some high speed and the YouTube channel and everything else
Yeah,
that we got going on. So I'm looking forward to that.
absolutely, absolutely. All right, dude. Let's let him get to the episode. I hope you guys enjoy Brian Stevens from SpyPoint. All right, we've got Brian Stevens on the line. Brian, dude, thank you for taking time out of your summer to talk with us today.
Man, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys and talking about game cameras and all that you guys got going on, all that we've got going on, and just it's hard to believe summer's here and we'll turn the corner to getting ready for deer season. We're still doing a little bit of bow fishing, but it's not going to be too long before we're talking about getting ready to set stands and put cameras out if they aren't already out. So it's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, Chase and I remarked right before we hit record that the summer's going to blow past us if we're not careful. So it seems every year, as you get further into being a good outdoorsman, the timeline just slings past you, and next thing you know, it's a cool front coming through.
That's exactly right, my man. That's exactly right.
So why don't you give everybody kind of the elevator pitch as to who you are, and don't forget the fact that you've got that awesome podcast, of course.
Well, listen, I appreciate it. I've been an outdoors advocate my whole life. I grew up on a big cattle ranch down in Florida, and those of you that have watched some of our stuff back in the day from Ultimate Bow Hunting TV, my co-host on SpyPoint now, Billy Lawson, he and I have known each other since the fourth grade and have chased many animals over the years in Florida. We grew up in Florida and had the opportunity to start some businesses in the outdoor industry in 2010-ish, and then got into videoing and doing that, and then we started doing the Ultimate Bow Hunting TV on the TV side, and then transitioned to a lot of the social media where I think we saw the light of TV was probably not the most strategic place for us, and the kind of content that we were doing, more of that short film video review kind of thing. And we seemed to find a niche and it worked and people liked it, and then had the opportunity to cross paths with SpyPoint a number of years ago. And I did some work on the Chronicles with Scoutlook, which is Hunt Stand now, and did some filming for those guys, a great group of people over there. And then cross paths again with SpyPoint this past year with Dusty and Natalie, and a SpyPoint ambassador, and we're doing more of the film series and content for SpyPoint, and just feel very blessed about having the opportunity. So I've been behind the camera, in front of the camera, I've edited, done it all, and it's been a great ride for the last 10 or 15 years.
That's awesome, man.
Whereabouts in Florida were you?
Here we go.
Yeah, man. We grew up. I was born in Okeechobee and grew up on a big cattle ranch down there, and then moved to Central Florida, and that's where I met Billy. We had, my family ran some ranches in Okeechobee and Titusville area, and Deseret and the Mormon Ranch, and then my dad was the president of the Florida Cattlemen's in Kissimmee, and that's where the headquarters were. And so we moved to Kissimmee, and then just did what we did there. And Billy and I, he lived in Kissimmee. His family owned a big ranch there between near the Orlando International Airport, and he and I have been running those woods since we were kids. And we also love the water, so we're big ocean, love to spearfish, bowfish, dives, and spend a lot of time down in the Keys. And so people don't think of Florida, as kind of the, cattle ranching and epic center for a lot of wildlife and, some fishing, but there's so much more to Florida. It's changed a lot, but, I still love to get down there and chase Osceolas and hogs and deer hunt and do it all down there.
Yeah, Florida definitely provides a lot of opportunities that people don't think about. A lot of them just think, oh, they got small deer, and but the fishing's phenomenal. Like I say, on both coasts, the bass fishing is the best in the world for the most part.
Lake Toho,
So
man. We grew up on Lake Toho. It was a top 5 bass lake for a number of years. So yeah, there's incredible fishing in Florida, both fresh and saltwater. You're right.
right. So, but did you ever hunt down near what was it, Okeechobee area?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we it's so funny. I look at pictures, back when I was a kid, and my dad, and we had the flannel shirts and the blue jeans, and
Oh
sitting in
yeah.
a tree stand with a 30-30, back in the 70s with a piece of plywood in between, the 3 trees. And we killed deer, but, I wonder now I look back, I'm like, that's why we didn't kill any really big deer. We didn't pay any attention to the wind or anything like that, and so, but, in my older years, yeah, we've hunted a lot. Billy's ranch, he managed it really, really well. I mean, it wasn't uncommon for us to shoot, 200-pound deer, 140-inch deer. And, for Florida, that's a deer. And, a lot of it's management. And if you feed them and you let them grow up and get age on them and don't pressure them, and we were big on culling deer. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to shoot some really, in my opinion, some really nice mature deer in Florida. I've shot a lot of big hogs. I'm a turkey fanatic too. And so there's just a lot down there that people can hunt. And if you find the right places, there's still some really good deer hunting down there.
Yeah, no doubt. There's, like I always say on the podcast, there's definitely pockets in Florida that have big deer. I hunt near Alachua County. It's one of the bigger buck counties in the state. I think it's like top 5 in the state that produces big deer. I mean, it's not uncommon for
man.
somebody to kill 150
Well,
up
you
here.
got Paynes Prairie there. I went to school, University of Florida, and so I lived in Gainesville for a lot of years, so I know that county, and there's some studs that come out of that county, and I've seen them, and I've done a little hunting there, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. I knew that you two hadn't talked before, but I knew the moment he brought up Florida, you two were going to just hit it off.
I could have become best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
I could have
University of
gone and got a
Florida.
cup of coffee, set
Go
down the
Gators.
mic, and come back, and it would have been perfect. But, yeah, no, it's cool, man. Chase, this is the first time I've ever heard someone speak glowingly about Florida.
Heck yeah, man.
Normally we're the
small.
ones making that pitch.
Absolutely. We'll be down. We're actually going to be down, Billy and my brother Mark, and I will be down in Key West Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We will be spear fishing, and we do something down there that a lot of people do. You guys got to do it if you get a chance. Is we bow fish mahi
What?
30 miles
wow.
off of Key West in 2,000 foot of water. And we'll fish, we'll get them up, and then my brother jumps in. He was a special forces operator for a number of years and combat diver, and he's a nut spear fisherman, and he loves to get in the water with the sharks while we're bow fishing them. And so we film a whole series of bow fishing, that kind of stuff, down in Key West. So yeah, Florida's our backyard, and we love it, man.
And just like that, Brian Stevens just showed everybody how much cooler he is than we are. For sure. Like that is yep, next level. Oh man. Well, one of the challenges that we face down here in Florida, and since you're from here, you know this, and Chase, you just touched on it. It's pockets of deer. It's finding those areas, and I feel like you can do that on a macro level in the state. You've got Alachua County, like you mentioned, Chase, just a little northwest of here in Mariana, and in that area you have a good pocket of deer because you got some agriculture up that way. But even within wherever you are, there are pockets of deer. Like right here in Tallahassee, I have found quite plainly and easily over the past couple years now that this area, you might have 10,000 acres, but more so than anywhere I've seen in my world, in my travels, there's 50 acres on that holds a lot of deer.
Yep.
And narrowing that down has become a massive pursuit for me because I'm a public land hunter. like 99.99%. That's what I do. And we've got abundant public land here, but not all of it is worth putting in the time. And for years, I slept on trail cameras. This year really started diving back into those, using them as reconnaissance tools, and I couldn't think of a better person to come on and talk about the products that Chase and I use, but also share how people can use those to leverage their advantage in their own back 40 or wherever it is that they're hunting. So I think the way I want to kind of start this off is, and Chase, unless you object, I kind of want to touch on some of the things that you think people do incorrectly with trail cameras, because a lot of people get frustrated with them, um, and they end up kind of casting them to the side or putting them on the back burner. I've done it myself, and some of that was self-inflicted. So maybe we could start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the good thing for anybody right now in using a camera, and the way I would suggest somebody using a camera is it's a way to gather information, and information helps you make decisions, and then hopefully the right decisions on hunting deer. And everybody has a little bit different philosophy. I've got a philosophy. You guys have a philosophy of, and it's hunting deer and then hunting a mature animal or one or two mature animals, which make it even more difficult. So when it comes to picking a game camera, I think find something that you're comfortable with. I wouldn't, if you've never used a game camera, maybe jumping into one that has every bell and whistle and every feature is probably not the best thing to do, because then you might get frustrated because you may not need and or want to figure out all of those options. So, SpyPoint does have some very good basic cameras that you can use that have the ability to expand battery life. That's the other thing that I would really encourage people to think about, is finding a camera that either has the ability to have lithium batteries and or a solar panel to expand your battery life. So those are something that I think are basic that would be important. But start with something simple from a camera and get your feet wet, get comfortable with it. And then if you want to use a cellular camera, then there's obviously benefits to a cellular wireless camera that can expand the ability to get real-time information. And that's where I think you can then begin to make day-to-day decisions on if you're hunting a particular animal. So I think I would just start right there, guys, and just say, listen, start with something you're comfortable with, and then get comfortable, get some of that data, and then work your way from there.
Yeah, for sure. I think the lithium component of it might be the most important component. If you can't do an external battery pack, or if that's not in your budget, you're just jumping into it. I've seen a monstrous improvement when running lithium batteries than your basic alkaline.
Well, you have to think about it too. What's the one Achilles heel to any game camera? It's battery life. And so if you have the ability to maybe invest a little bit more money on a camera that has a lithium battery component, and then obviously there is that solar panel aspect that you can add even to that's going to recharge those lithium batteries. But even just the lithium battery itself, you've just eliminated one of the deficiencies that any game camera has. No matter how effective it is, if it doesn't have power, it's not going to take a picture. And SpyPoint over the years, I think, has done a very good job of trying to expand and accelerate that type of technology to ensure that these cameras, when they're in the field, they're working as long as possible.
Right. I've seen that push for the lithium for years now, and then I noticed a big difference when I started running the lithium batteries, because like I said, when you're running those alkalis, they drain down a little bit over time. The lithiums hold their charge for the most part, and then all of a sudden they just die off. And I noticed when I was using the alkaline batteries that when they would get down to like 50%, 40%, then you'd be missing like nighttime picks. Like it wouldn't take any nighttime picks for some reason, or something different, or maybe if they were just out of range a little bit too far where normally they would have caught that pick. So I definitely think that's definitely the way to go.
It's interesting how far cell cameras have come. I was looking at some of the older SpyPoints versus where they are today, or just cameras in general. I mean, from used to have to put film in them, which is there's an entire generation of podcast listener right now that doesn't remember those days. And I envy them because there's nothing worse than coming back and having the photos developed and then it's nothing there. I mean it was terrible. But how do you go about assessing what trail camera style you put out, or maybe your placement of that? How do you determine where's a good place to put a trail camera?
And so it's a great question. And, my philosophy is just, it's an N of one, but I would say I'm going to look at different things. I'm going to look at travel zones. I'm going to look at bedding areas. I'm going to look at, well, obviously in an area where I think I might hunt. And then also the time of year, I may place cameras and be a little bit more, conservative in how deep I go into an area if I'm going to be hunting that area versus, let's say, in the summer when I'm starting to know that they're growing in a bedding area. I might push it a little bit and go closer to a core bedding area and utilize those cameras. Again, for me, it's getting intel from a inventory standpoint and the latter part of the season to winter into spring. And then summer, you want to see, what's happening. We all love to see that bone growth, and it happens so quickly, into the fall to be able to say, okay, I know these are the deer that survived, and then here are the core areas that they're at, and then even try to fine tune to where is that bachelor group. Because if you're hunting early season, obviously you're not hunting. You might be hunting one buck, but he's going to be with other deer. So it's where's that bachelor group bedding and where are they coming out? And so having a variety of cameras is key. And so you can have a cellular camera that you can put and not have to touch. And SpyPoint, I think, has done a good job of trying to make those more affordable. So you guys remember, 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was almost cost prohibitive to have multiple cellular cameras. And so now I think they've tried to enhance the technology and cut that price point so that way you have the features, but also you can maybe invest in several of these cameras. I think if I have a deer, let's go cellular versus regular camera first scenario. If I've got a particular deer that I'm hunting, and this is a big mature deer, okay, and I'm not talking about how many inches he has on his head. I'm talking a mature deer, because a mature deer could be 140 inches, right, or he could be 220 inches based on where you're at. They're still smart. They're hard to hunt, and they know what's happening around them. This is where I love a cellular camera, because it's going to prevent me from having to go in there on a frequent basis and check it and educate that deer. And I just, again, I've made enough mistakes and had some success over the years that I know when you educate that mature deer, it becomes harder to hunt. And the worst case you can do is to bump them. And so I love the fact that, I can check it, get real-time information, and if he's starting to show up in daylight hours and you're getting that, the next day you need to be in that stand hunting that deer if the wind is right. And the real-time information and preventing you from having to go in there and screw up that area and leave your scent and educate that deer, that to me is where a cellular states away and you have multiple farms, that's a no-brainer. But if it's just your backyard, I still think there's a place for a cellular camera. A regular trail camera, I think, still has value too. And I like the ones that are the really the dark. One, from a deer standpoint, some people may argue it doesn't make a difference, and others may say you may have pressure deer. So if you're hunting that public land and you got multiple cameras and people out there, who knows, that red light that is going off all the time may booger them. Maybe it doesn't, but so I'm going to err on the side of creating a scenario that the least amount of disruption for that particular deer, where I just don't want to know. And then from a trespasser, somebody's walking, they walk by and they see that red light glow. What's happened, guys, to your camera?
Right.
It's gone. They're going to steal it. They gone. And so you want to prevent that. And so I think, those are cameras that I like that may not be cellular, is a solar panel with a no glow light, is just, those are things that I like. Doesn't mean that the other stuff won't work, but those are just a couple of scenarios where I might use a cellular camera versus a non-cellular camera.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and Brian, you mentioned something, and I know a buddy of mine uses his cell cams for like immediate intel. Like he'll use the features as he'll get pictures, because I know there's features on it where you can get pictures right away, or you can get pictures like every 4 hours or every 6 hours or whatnot. And he'll set them up to where he gets max battery life, but then an hour or so before he goes into hunt, he'll set them to where he gets pictures right away, so that way he can look at those or get up to date information. Go, oh shoot, that buck was there 20 minutes before I got in there. I'm not going to go in that area and intrude because he may be right there and I may booger him out of there walking into the stand.
That's exactly right. And and so I think, in the summer months, or before season starts, you don't need as many like right now pictures. You can set it to every 4 hours and use the settings. And that's the cool thing about SpyPoint also, is that they've got the app and the SpyPoint experience that allows you to customize so many different things and ways to use these cameras to fit your particular needs. It's not a one size fits all. But let's just say it's during the rut, and that buck has been gone for 4 weeks, and then boom, he shows up. And you know what? If the wind is right, you go and you hunt him that next day because he's there now. Versus, and I've made this mistake many times, is you hunt, and you're hoping one day he's going to show up. Well, you know what? If you're hunting on those days that the wind's bad and he knows, well, you can almost guarantee that he's not going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you have that real-time information in the two scenarios, it's just going to increase your chances of getting an opportunity to get eyes on that deer in bow range.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you talk about the public land, it's like a couple different things tied together. You talk about the no glow so that it doesn't show up for theft purposes on public land. As a public land hunter, that's a big deal. The micro is so small. I love it because it just disappears on the side of a lot of these trees. I also hang them up high enough and with a strap.
There you go.
But it's one of those things where I can get it out of somebody's eyesight. You're removing the ability for them to see it, and then on top of that, I don't have to go in there if I'm not getting photos, because I can jump in that app, which is just phenomenal, and see if the battery life is where it needs to be. Is it triggering like it's supposed to be? I can see everything right there and reduce how many times I'm going in there, because if it's a honey hole on public, all the more reason that you don't want to be back in that spot until you need to be.
No, 100%. And I've seen, a lot of guys do where you could literally take one stick from a lock-on stand and carry it with you, put it up and climb it up. And then, SpyPoint has, a screw-in hook that has an adjustable ball, so you can adjust it down. So you can get it up, and then you just take the stick down and you take it with you when you leave. And so that way, as you said, it's out of sight. But even if somebody sees it, they're not going to be able to climb up there and get it. And it just minimizes the ability, or they got to put a lot of effort into it. And so, that's a great tip, that I've heard from other hunters and public land, or just in general, of way to use some of these cameras and keep them out of, eyesight.
Yeah, that's my go-to method. I take it maybe one step further. I've got a little aider that doubles down for it. I hang most of mine somewhere between like 10 and 12 feet up, on a pretty steep angle down. But Florida, it's nothing but pine trees. It's you can't hide it
up in the panhandle, man.
yeah. I'm working really hard, but
you
also,
are, yeah.
The price point on that camera is so favorable that you're willing to take that risk.
Well, and the cool thing about the Link Micro series is that they have the built-in solar panel and the lithium battery. So they just came out. They just sent me a few of them, and the packaging is super cool, man. And they've got the battery and the solar panel. So yeah, you may not get a lot of light in some of those pines down, down there in Florida, but you got the lithium battery, so you get more bang for your buck.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a wonderful tool at the disposal. I wonder what your take is on a good combination of cellular versus non-cellular? Because do you have all your cameras deployed, and as the season goes on, you move them, or are you just kind of rolling with an arsenal of a couple cameras that you can pop out whenever you need to?
My scenario might be a little bit different than others, but I would say, listen, I'm gonna roll cameras, all year based on my scenario. So I might have just one or two going, or and I may, if it's a non-cellular, I may check it, every week to a couple of weeks. And if it's a cellular camera, I may have it at a setting where it's just taking, and saving battery and not eating up a lot, for that particular window. But I will have, my cellular camera probably in an area that's closer to the bedding and that trail that even though it's the summer, I just don't want to get in there and bump them a lot. And then I'll use a non-cellular camera. Let's just say if you're able to feed, or you have a food plot, then I'll use those cameras near that area that I'll literally just drive up. And that's the one thing, as I'm a big fan of. I like to drive to, whether it's a tractor, it's a truck, versus walking across, if you can. But if you drive up and that's your non-cellular camera, I think it's less disturbing, especially this time of year, to use, and I love the Solar Dark series, or those are some of my, favorite, just because you get the combination of the solar panel. I'm a big believer in that, and you get the no glow lights. So that's just one. And then you have, your regular dark series, or the Force cameras. You have a Force 20, which is a small little, very, reasonably priced non-cellular camera that no glow, small, compact, and it's going to take great pictures, take some video, and really be a workhorse. So I'll use some of those, type of workhorse cameras, what I call them, in a variety of different places. But I'm going to use the camera that's next to the bedding area, the most sensitive place. I'm going to use a camera, most likely a cellular, that has a solar panel, lithium battery, and cellular, so I don't have to go back in there on a regular basis. In the summer, yes, it's less disruptive to them,
Hmm.
but still, I just like to minimize the area. And listen, it's good to get in there. We all love checking the card. I mean, come on, it's like Christmas when you go do that. I mean, who doesn't like to go pull the card out and either check it right there or in the truck or when you get home? And so, I love doing that too. And you can see the area, the sign, are they still using that trail? All of those things I think are good. But again, I go back to the most sensitive areas that are the most susceptible to pressure, to bumping a deer, or a bedding area where that doe is going to start blowing her head off, and just minimizing the area in there. So then that way, when he's showing up, you find that right route, you get in there right when, and if he's showing up, most likely in the next 2 or 3 days, you're going to kill that deer.
Right. And I know a lot of guys like to use the non-cellular cams to just let them soak. Like they'll put them in spaces where, like, I just want to see what this area does for the season. I'm not going to hunt here, but I just want this camera. I'm going to have a camera here for the whole season. And then you don't need to go check it. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to use that intel for next year, as opposed to like right now information.
That's exactly right. And so the Force cameras, if just from a SpyPoint standpoint, they have these Force cameras, Force 20, and others that are just small, compact, again, not real expensive, and they take great pictures, and they're just going to soak up that information for long periods of time and be a workhorse. And so you need some of those workhorse cameras to be able to do just what you described.
I did a lot of that last year. I think last fall was when I really started to kind of tinker with the idea that maybe, my success would improve if I had these other data points, like what you're talking about, because that's all it is. You're finding patterns, you're trying to put the odds in
Yep.
your favor. And what I did was I took several non-cellular cameras and I stuck them in places where I had theories. Like, I think that when X happened, well, for example, I went like a mile into a swamp just down this old path that you could barely even see it was there sometimes. And I hung a camera like 15 feet up, and I left it there from the beginning of our deer season, October 23rd, all the way to the end of it when that piece of public closed. And my theory was, I'd be willing to bet you that when the hunter pressure on the pine flats increases deep down in this swamp, this is going to become a spot that's going to carry a lot of deer. And literally the moment deer season happened, I went like 2 weeks before I got my first photo. But right as bow season pressure kicked on, all of a sudden I started getting deer photos. And then as muzzleloader and gun season picked up, I had all kinds of daytime photos that indicated that theory was correct. And now I can apply that to other parcels on public, and B, now I know I need to put a cellular camera there, because there were some really nice deer moving around when I could have been back in there. And I think that's where they kind of complement each other.
Yeah, when you go hang up that cellular camera, you need to hang up a tree stand too, man. Because that's where I'd be hunting too. I mean, because do they run dogs up there still? I know years ago
yes.
they used to.
Yep.
So in Florida, back old school Florida hunting is running dogs, and Bill and I hate that, and it's just, some people love it. Because we were bow hunters back in the day, and we were tree stand hunters, and it just made it hard to do both, and that's exactly what those deer they're gonna go to those sanctuaries like you just described. And if you can get in and get out without making a lot of ruckus and educating them, those are some of the bigger deer are going to show up, and especially those Florida bucks is in the swamps. And that's, if you give Billy and I a choice to hunt Florida, we're going to say, where's the swamp and the thickest, gnarliest stuff, and that's where we're going to go hang our stand.
Yeah, that you to the textbook. That's what you just described. This one piece of public, you can't dog hunt on it. The surrounding area around the public is dog hunted. So you also see a lot of influx of pressure of deer coming for safety as well. But dude, I didn't. And the best part about it was, this is like the icing on the cake here. I didn't get the first human photo the entire time. Soaked for 4 months.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
No one was there. This is the biggest rub line
nice.
you've ever seen leading to it. You would have thought it would have just been a billboard, but no. So it's
good for you, man. You found a little honey hole, and I need to hear a story next year. You got to get the time in there and kill a big one in there, man.
Well, I just got drawn for my quotas, so I've got 3 weekends in a row that I get to hunt.
Beautiful.
So I'm
nice.
Fingers crossed, man. We'll have you on to break that one down, since you know Florida.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Let cameras be a tool, and just always think about a camera is gathering information, because we can all just go out there and hunt, and that's fine. If it's just a getaway and just be outside, and if something happens, great. But there's also a lot of people that put a lot of time and effort into what they do and their passion for hunting or bow hunting. And the beautiful thing about the cameras, today, is that they give you enough features and benefits, but it's just to give you intel to meet your scenario. And it doesn't have to be a one size fits all anymore. You don't have to have a cookie cutter frustrating camera, and use the variety of cameras for your scenario and your setup, but use them to help you get information. And the biggest thing that I learned, years ago, from a buddy who shoots giant deer every single year, is that don't hunt until you know that deer's there or when it's right. If you're hunting a particular deer or, an area that has got it, just don't go in and blindly hunt it. And that goes with the wind, and it also goes with, when they're showing up in those daylight hours. And that's where these cameras can help you with that piece. And then, the nice thing about the SpyPoint app and experience is it actually does give you the game forecast times and the wind and all that. So you can actually plan and map out your whole hunt through that resource. But those are just a few things that I would just, over the years, making a lot of mistakes, and fortunately, have shot a few nice deer that I've learned.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited about this summer, we've talked a lot about how busy and but also long the off season is. With that cell camera, I'm gonna get photos, man, and it's always gonna be like, whenever I've got it set, I'm gonna start knowing, I'm about to get some photos, and I feel like that excitement is gonna help make the summer pass by.
Oh, it is. And then when it comes, I mean, I've got a buddy. We hunt a small little farm here in North Georgia that's got some freakazoids on it, and it's kind of the urban suburban area. And I hunt more with my son there than I do, just because. And he shot his first Pope and Young buck last year at 17, and it was a nice deer. And there's some, and it's just Sean. Just, I mean, he's had some cellular cameras down there, and I mean, he just, I 5 minutes ago I just got this picture, Brian. He's here, he's showing up, and you get to talk with your buddies. And if it's just you, you get excited. But if you have a group of people, hunting a lease, that's the cool thing about this too, is you get to share that with everybody, and it just makes what we do that much more enjoyable. And I've gotten to the point now where it's like, yeah, you want to shoot that big deer, but you celebrate somebody else. That if you shoot a big buck, man, with your bow, you've done a lot to get to that point and make it happen. It just doesn't happen automatically when you're bow hunting, or even gun hunting too, for the most part. So you celebrate it, man, and the cameras are a great way to just help you do that.
Absolutely. I've got a photo on a cheap Tasco in 2015. I shot my personal best with the bow. I have him on camera looking at me as I grunted, which is just the coolest thing in the world, man.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
That's priceless.
Yeah, no, it's the coolest. It's just like you see on TV, like.
Yep.
Oh man. So Chase, do you have any final thoughts? Any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions actually on the cameras. Is there anything that we can do with the cameras, like maintenance or preventative things to help extend the life of the camera? And then when you go in to set your camera up, is there anything special that you're doing? Like, are you facing the camera a certain way to avoid sunlight, or any little tips like that?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, there are some things that you can go on the website, and Dusty and the guys are really, if you sign up for the newsletter, are really trying to create a platform of giving continuous information on how to maintain your camera. And the nice thing about SpyPoint is that their customer service is second to none, and they've invested a tremendous amount into their customer service. So if you do have questions or needs, you can pick up a phone and talk to somebody. So about your camera maintenance, upgrades, firmware, all of that. I think in general, I mean, listen, they're pretty solid, and you can leave them out and go. And especially if you go to the lithium battery, you have less, with that moisture getting in with the alkaline batteries, and creating, some issues in there. So I think, if you're not using the camera, listen, pull it out and, keep it inside. If you got a workhorse and you're going to leave it out there for months, then I don't think you need to worry about it. And then as far as placement, I think placing it based on where the sun is going to be on that trail is important if you're using a non-solar camera, because you don't want there to be a glare when that animal crosses that path of the sensor, and then you have a blown out picture. It's not really anything to do necessarily with any camera. It's just, if you take a picture in the sunlight, it's going to be hard to see it. So I think keep that in mind. And then obviously if you are using a camera that is, a solar based, place it so that way as that, kind of know where the sunrise and sunset's going to be. So it's in the most optimal position to capture some of that sunlight for a period of time and recharge, those batteries. And then the other part of it is, where do you place it on the tree? A lot of it, times, I like to do it waist high, but you guys have talked about strategies on, placing a little bit higher and tilting it down, whether it's, a human pressure standpoint or some, and I like to spray my cameras down. If when I set them up, I'll spray them down just, because I'm touching them and all of that, especially if it's real close to a trail. And so if you put it higher, then, you have less opportunity for an animal to smell it, know it's there. And I'm telling you, I do believe there are times a buck will walk behind the camera. If they know there's a glow and they smell it, they're just going to avoid that. And so do the things based on the type of pressured animal you have to just minimize letting them know that you're there. So it'd just be a few things I'd throw out to everybody.
That's some really good information. you mentioned that glow that last time, and it reminded me. I had a fella. You're gonna enjoy this. I had a fella tell me his theory on why deer are scared of trail camera, like the low glows, and that is because of their depth perception. Whenever that goes off, it looks like a dim red headlamp of a hunter walking in.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, listen, if you've had multiple cameras or you've walked by them, you instantly look at it. And yeah, a deer has different eyes than we do, but still, I just believe they know. And every deer has a personality.
Sure.
I mean, in some are like, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get spooked about much. And then you're going to have some wiry does and some wiry bucks, and especially in a high pressure area, anything out of the normal, they're going to know. Let's just think about it this way. If it's in your house, in your bedroom, or in your living room, and a couch is out of place or turned, or a chair or something's not right, there's a cup on the table, you're going to notice it. And I do believe deer that walk these trails every single day, they know when something's different. And I go back, if you're hunting a particular animal, it's hard to do. And so do everything you can to think about it with that mentality of, I'm in their bedroom or I'm in their hallway getting to the living room, and I want to minimize them knowing that I've ever been here. So, some deer don't care, but there's some that do, and I like to err on the side of caution. And if I'm hunting a big deer, that joker's not going to know that I've been around.
That sounds like Chase's theory on the big buck he's chasing down there.
What one of many?
Yeah, one of many.
That's right.
Oh, the rich grow richer.
Well, hopefully, one of them will pay off.
Absolutely, it will, man. It will, and when it does, there's no better feeling. I've missed some heart wrenching, but I've been fortunate enough, and you guys know when you get a chance to put a big mature buck on the ground with your bow, man, it's just. Oh, yeah. And again, I don't care if he's 130 inches or if he's 200 inches. That deer is over 4 years old. They're hard to hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They don't get big by being dumb.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
That's awesome, man. Well, where can people go to find everything that you're producing and all the new content, a lot of new YouTube content from SpyPoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, go to spypoint.com, and, there's Project SpyPoint that you'll find on there. There's the community where we're producing some of the short film series. Josh is doing some, land management and deer management series on his ranch in Kansas, and they're doing some really good stuff. And then there's just going to be general gear reviews and tips. So, your hub is spypoint.com. And you'll be able to navigate and to find, all of the products, the new things coming out, the content. And, SpyPoint really is working hard to build a digital platform for information content that is not only on the website, but ultimately will be on the app. And if you haven't downloaded the SpyPoint app to help you navigate your cameras, you need to, because there's going to be all kinds of filters and information there to use your cameras, but as well, things to help you in the field: wind direction, scent information, game forecast, feeding times, moon phases, all of those things that help you, again, gather intel to know when to be in the woods when the time is right. So those are just a few things I think people, if they're interested, can go check out.
Absolutely. Chasing Tails Nation, I appreciate you guys. Go over there, check out what they're doing. If you're looking for a new hunting podcast, I thoroughly recommend it. It's awesome. I enjoy every time I get the notification that there's a new one available. So, Brian, dude, thank you for taking time out your evening. I know it was a busy one, but this was a fun podcast, and hopefully we can build on it in the future. When Chase and I set Florida records for whitetails using the camera, we can jump back on here and dissect how.
Listen, I'd love it, man. I'd love it. I'd be proud. I'd be proud, man. Representing, buddy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You guys take care.